What if someone you saw every day, someone you felt like you knew, suddenly looked like a stranger? That is what fans are saying right now about Rachael Ray. The face we all knew, the smiling, bubbly chef, has been replaced by someone fans say they do not even recognize. And everyone is asking what happened to her. Before you see her now, you need to take a deep breath because the answer is so much bigger and more shocking than you think. The story begins in May 2025 when Rachael posted a video for Mother's Day. She was in her kitchen wearing glasses and talking about her past, telling a story about how she used to be very poor when she first lived in New York City and lived on $40 a week, too scared to tell her mom she had no money. But fans were not focused on the story. They were focused on Rachael herself. The comment section exploded with worry. Her voice seemed to be trembling. One person wrote, "Are you okay? You do not look well." Another said, "She's unrecognizable." And this was not the first time. This wave of concern had been building for months. Back in fall 2024, she posted other cooking videos that made fans feel like something was wrong. The comments were brutal. What happened to her? Is she okay? One person admitted they were shocked it was her, saying it was not being mean, just an observation. The most common message was that she looked like a different person. Fans pointed out specific things. Her speech sounded slurred. One side of her mouth seemed lower, and speculation erupted that she may have suffered a stroke. Others suggested maybe she was on high-dose steroids for a hidden health issue. Rachael never addressed any of it. In those videos she appeared tired, frail, and very different from the energetic star people remembered. That was the image fans had, a trembling woman who seemed unrecognizable. But then, just 1 month after that May 2025 video, she stepped out, and the woman on the red carpet told a very different story. On June 12, 2025, Rachael Ray made a rare appearance with her husband John Cusimano at the North Shore Animal League America's celebration of rescue. This was a major event with celebrities like Howard Stern and Hank Azaria. Rachael was smiling, looking healthy, posing with her husband, cradling puppies, looking genuinely happy. It was the first time most people had seen her in public in a full year, the last time being the same event in June 2024. This only deepened the mystery. How could the unrecognizable woman from May be this glowing woman from June? Was she putting on a brave face? Was she hiding something? If she is so happy and healthy, where has she been? And why are her public appearances so rare? It all ties into the disappearance mystery. For 17 years, she was part of daily life on The Rachael Ray Show. Then in 2023, it ended, and Rachael vanished from daytime TV. Many assumed she disappeared, but she says she never stopped working. She is now splitting her time between New York and a small, quiet town in Tuscany, Italy. She says she prefers the quiet life and is busier than ever, even launching a podcast in late 2024 called I'll Sleep When I'm Dead, though she paused it after 8 episodes because she got a huge order for new shows with her own company. But this leads to a bigger question. Why did she need a quieter life so badly? To understand that, you have to understand the night that changed her life forever, the night her world turned to ash. On August 9, 2020, Rachael was at her Lake Luzerne, New York home, her sanctuary deep in the woods that she designed herself. She was home with her husband, her mother, and her dog Bella when she heard danger inside. The walls of fire had broken out and moved fast. The family escaped with nothing. Viewer videos showed flames shooting from the home. Rachael described the experience as blood-curdling as she watched her entire home burn and later be bulldozed. She lost everything, including irreplaceable notebooks and her husband's music books. She once thought the pizza oven survived only to find it destroyed days later. Her reaction was gratitude that they were safe, but the trauma was deep. She later said, "Disaster forever changes you." This is the moment that explains her need for a quiet life in Italy, and the trauma fans might see in her face and hear in her voice. But Rachael has been a fighter her whole life, and this was not the first time she survived something terrifying. In the 1990s in New York City, she was mugged outside her apartment in Queens by a man who slammed her against a door and put a gun to her back. She escaped with mace, but the man returned days later, dragged her into an alley, and beat her with the gun until her dog chased him away. After being attacked twice, she fled the city and moved back upstate. Do you see the pattern? Trauma in New York led her to flee upstate. Trauma in 2020 led her to flee to Italy. That first escape accidentally created her career. Back upstate, she worked as a food buyer and started teaching a cooking class called 30-Minute Mediterranean Meals. It took off, leading to a local TV segment, then a Today Show appearance, and then the Food Network contract in 2001. Her career exploded with multiple shows, cookbooks, a magazine, and her Nutrish dog food company. But success brought new battles, including a public clash with Martha Stewart. Martha criticized her skills and even her cookbook. And in 2006, Martha's staffers were caught trying to sneak into Rachael's show taping. They were literally spying on her. Rachael responded with respect, not attacks, saying she admired Martha, and famously adding, "I don't work for Martha, I work for my viewers." She dealt with lawsuits involving her dog food, battled setbacks, and kept fighting. After 17 years on her talk show, she was ready for change. When her show ended in 2023, she said her passions had evolved toward a platform unencumbered by traditional rules, meaning she wanted control. The fire taught her she wanted her small world back, so she made a power move. On the same day her show ended, she launched her new company Free Food Studios. She didn't retire, she pivoted. And she built her new life in a new home, her Italian dream home. She bought a centuries-old stable with no water, electricity, heat, or plumbing, and rebuilt it into a villa with a music hall for her husband, and even a kitchen in the bedroom. This villa is not a vacation home. It is her new office and headquarters. She now runs Free Food Studios, sold half of it to AE, and signed a massive deal for 110 new episodes. She stars in 3 new shows: Rachael Ray in Tuscany, Meals and Minutes, and Rachael Ray's Rebuild. The most important one, inspired by her fire. In Rebuild, she helps families recover from disasters. In the promo, she tearfully says she wants to help people rebuild their homes and their lives. So, when fans ask if she is okay, they are seeing not a victim but a survivor. She took her trauma and turned it into a mission, a new empire, and a new life fall backed by an estimated net worth of $100 million. But even with her empire rebuilt and her life reshaped in Italy, there was one part of Rachael's story that almost no one knew, the part she never shared on television, never posted online, never said in an interview. It was the quiet truth behind her disappearance, the real reason her voice trembled in those videos, the reason her eyes looked tired, the reason fans felt something was different. After the fire, after the show ended, after the move to Italy, Rachael found herself in an unexpected battle. She no longer knew who she was without the chaos. For 17 years, her life was noise: audiences, cameras, planes, deadlines, producers, scripts, sponsors, studios. And suddenly, it was silent. The silence was supposed to heal her, but at first it frightened her. She had never lived without an audience. She had never lived without expectations. She had never lived without running from one project to the next. And for the first time since those early days in Albany, she found herself alone with her thoughts. She talked about this only once, briefly, in a conversation that most people missed. She said that after the fire, she began to question everything: her work, her identity, even her purpose. She said she felt like she had been performing being Rachael Ray for so long that she wasn't sure who the real Rachael was anymore. And in Italy, surrounded by old stones and olive trees, and the quiet hum of a life she once only dreamed about, she finally faced that question. It wasn't a breakdown, it was a rebuilding. Just like the villa, just like the guest house, just like every chapter of her life that had come after catastrophe. That was the part fans never saw. They saw the trembling hands, the tired eyes, the softer voice, and they assumed the worst. But what they were really seeing was a woman learning how to slow down for the first time in her adult life. A woman who had carried decades of pressure, finally letting herself breathe. And while the internet panicked, Rachael was doing something she had never allowed herself to do before. She was living quietly, gently, intentionally. She was healing, and that is why the red carpet appearance felt so shocking to the world. To the fans, it looked like she suddenly bounced back. But the truth was, she hadn't bounced. She had rebuilt herself from the inside out. The woman holding puppies on the red carpet wasn't pretending. She wasn't forcing a smile. She had finally found balance between the life she built and the life she wanted. But even now, even in her new chapter, there is one final twist in her story, one last reveal about her future that no one is prepared for. And that final twist begins with something she said quietly, almost casually, in an interview that barely made headlines. When talking about her new life in Italy, she mentioned that the villa was not just a home and not just a studio, it was the last place I planned to build. She said it with a smile, but the line lingered, strange and heavy. Fans didn't notice it, but people close to her did. Rachael Ray, the woman who spent her entire life creating shows, creating recipes, creating homes, creating an empire, was saying she was done building. But why? For someone whose entire life was motion, why would she suggest she was preparing to slow down for good? The truth was something she had been quietly planning for years. After the fire, she began thinking about legacy, not the kind that shows up in awards or ratings or books, but the kind that lasts long after the cameras stop rolling, the kind that sticks when you aren't in the spotlight anymore. And once she settled into her life in Tuscany, once the noise faded, she realized something. She didn't want to spend the rest of her life on television. She didn't want to chase the next deal or the next season or the next hit. She wanted to use what she had built to lift other people up, to give opportunities to new creators, new cooks, new dreamers. That was the real reason she started Free Food Studios. It wasn't just a business venture, it was a succession plan. She was building a platform that would run without her. She was building a future where she didn't have to be the face of everything. For the first time, Rachael wasn't trying to be the star. She was trying to be the mentor. And behind the scenes, she has already begun stepping back. She has been training young hosts, young chefs, young home cooks, teaching them how to film, how to talk on camera, how to teach recipes that feel like a conversation instead of a lesson. She has been giving them resources, kitchens, producers, funding. Quietly, with no press, she has been shaping the next generation of food television. Because she knows one thing better than anyone: fire takes everything from you. And because of that, you build things that can live without you. This is the twist fans don't see. While the internet debates her face, her voice, her absence, Rachael Ray has been preparing for the biggest transition of her life. Not retiring, not stepping down, passing the torch. She wants to be remembered not as the woman who cooked fast meals or hosted daytime TV, but as the woman who rebuilt her world from ashes and then gave others the tools to build theirs. She is not disappearing, she is transforming. And one day, when the new faces of food television talk about how they started, they will say the same thing millions of viewers once said at home: Rachael showed me how. The tape hissed for a long moment, then Jack's voice returned slower, almost whispering. If you're hearing this, it means you opened the vault. A soft laugh followed, the kind only Jack Benny could deliver, dry. Perfectly timed. People always assumed the vault was a joke. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. There was a shuffle, like papers moving. I kept things down here. Not secrets to hurt anyone, but pieces of myself I wasn't ready to share. Another pause, comedy saved me. But there were days, dark ones, when the world expected me to be funny, and I didn't have a smile left. I recorded those moments, not for the public, for the person who'd someday be curious enough to listen. The reel clicked. A second recording began, this one from decades earlier. A younger Jack spoke quickly, nervous, completely unlike his stage persona. Tonight the audience laughed, but inside I felt empty. I don't know why I'm saying this. Maybe someday I'll understand. Maybe someday you will. More tapes followed. Short confessions, private doubts, quiet thoughts from a man who had spent his life making others laugh. But the final tape was different. When it started, an orchestra played softly behind him, his old radio theme. Jack inhaled deeply. If you found this, he said, then I want you to know something. Another long pause. The real treasure in this vault isn't gold, it's time. The time I spent with my audience, my friends, my family. That was my fortune. The tape ended with a single line, almost too quiet to hear. Don't waste yours. The reel snapped off. Silence filled the room. And the researchers realized Jack Benny's greatest punchline wasn't a joke at all. It was a final lesson he'd hidden for half a century. The researchers sat, frozen, not because the tapes were shocking, but because one last box sat in the corner of the vault, unlabeled, sealed with thick red wax, and stamped with a single handwritten warning. Open last. They looked at each other, then at the clock, then back at the box. Finally, one of them slid a knife through the seal. Inside were more reels. But these were different. Newer. Recorded much later in Jack's life. Long after his radio days, the first tape clicked on. A faint shuffle, a cough, then Jack's voice. Older but unmistakably sharp. All right, if you've made it this far, you deserve the truth. The researchers leaned in. Jack continued. Everyone talks about my money, my vault, my stinginess. But the joke was never about money. A chair creaked. It was about control. When the world feels too big, too loud, you build a vault. A place no one else can touch. He exhaled slowly. This room was mine. Another tape automatically began. This time, his tone changed, warm, almost emotional. I kept letters here, moments here, things I didn't want the studios to shape, or the press to twist. Paper rustled. This one is from Mary. Silence. Then Jack read aloud. His voice, unsteady. Jack, if you ever doubt yourself, remember this. You've already given the world more laughter than most people give in a lifetime. A tremble in his breath. She always knew what to say. Another click. On the final tape, Jack sounded peaceful, almost relieved. If you're listening, then my vault has been opened, and that's good. Because the things we lock away, they're meant to be found eventually. A soft piano melody played, the same tune he used to hum backstage. Laugh when you can, cry when you must, and don't hide the things that make you human. A final beat. Good night, folks. The tape ended. The vault, silent for 50 years, finally felt empty and somehow full at the same time. The researchers thought it was over. But as they prepared to leave the vault, one of them, Emily, noticed something strange. Behind the shelf where the last tape sat was a thin metal plate. Not a decoration, a door, a hidden compartment inside the vault. Was this in the blueprints? She asked. No, the archivist replied. Nothing in the plans shows this. Emily pushed the metal plate. It clicked. A small square door slid open, revealing a single velvet pouch coated in dust. Inside was a silver key and a folded note in Jack Benny's handwriting. Her hand shook as she opened it. The note read, if you're looking for the end of the story, it's not here. The vault was only the beginning. There was an address written beneath it. No explanation, just a simple line. Use the key. The researchers stared at each other. The address wasn't in Los Angeles. It wasn't even in California. It was a small town in Illinois. Jack's hometown. A second, smaller line was scribbled at the bottom. Some things you can't record on tape. Emily exhaled slowly. This wasn't just a vault, she whispered. It was a trail. The key glinted in her hand. Cold and heavy. They had uncovered Jack Benny's hidden confessions. But what waited at that address, what Jack believed was the real secret, was still locked away. Waiting. The flight to Illinois was quiet. Emily kept the silver key in her pocket, turning it over with her thumb, feeling the weight of a secret that had been waiting half a century to be opened. When they reached Waukegan, Jack Benny's hometown, the address led them not to a house, but to a small abandoned theater. The marquee was broken. The doors chained shut. Dust coated the ticket booth glass. Above the entrance, faded letters still clung to the frame. The Orpheum, this theater closed in the 1950s. The archivist said, Jack performed here when he was young. Emily found a narrow side door. A rusty padlock hung from it. She held up the silver key. It slid in perfectly. The lock clicked open. Inside, the theater was dark and silent. Rows of empty seats faced a torn curtain. The air smelled of wood and time. They stepped onto the stage. The floorboards creaked when Emily noticed something, a single spotlight fixture above them completely intact in an otherwise ruined building. Why would the spotlight still be here? She whispered. The archivist shone his flashlight upward. There was a small metal box bolted to the beam above the spotlight, a box just big enough to hold a reel, or a letter, or something Jack Benny wanted hidden far from Hollywood. A plaque beneath it read, For the final act. Emily climbed the narrow rig ladder, her hands trembling. She reached the box. It was sealed with another lock the same shape as the first. She inserted the silver key. Clicked. The box opened. Inside was a single envelope, yellowed with age. On the front, in Jack's unmistakable handwriting, to the person who cared enough to find this. Emily opened it carefully. Inside was a letter. Jack's voice echoed in her mind as she read. When I was a boy, I stood on this stage and dreamed of making people laugh. But dreams are loud, and fears are louder. This theater saw both. People thought the vault was where I kept my valuables. They were wrong. What mattered most to me, I kept here. There was a small photograph inside. Emily held it up to the flashlight. It showed a 9-year-old Jack Benny standing on this exact stage holding a violin, smiling nervously, his mother's hand resting gently on his shoulder.